It is I, Alphinius Goo. Hello, my friends, with this crazy wand. I don't even know where it came from. It looks actually like a little staff. What do you think, Camera Mendy?
It came from Stan.
Yes, that's right, Mr. Stan. Matchcase gave me this. That's right. It looks like a staff for a little gnome. You know what I'm saying? So kind of a gnomey thing.
Wait, hold it up again.
Hold it up. I shall. There you go.
Oh, it's you. It's you on the staff. It's like a self-portrait.
That is not me.
It is totally you.
That is not me whatsoever, Camera Mandy.
It is 100% you.
Whatever you say. Anyway, good morning, Camera Mandy. Say hello to everybody out there.
Hello.
We are pretty excited about the stream today because we are going to begin the world tour of Zyathé. Yes, so this is going to be taking you through first the world, and then we will move to the continents, and we will move through each sort of region of the continents, and so we'll be able to give you lore and all kinds of cool stuff about that. We're going to do that later. We're also going to make sure everybody knows a little bit about what's going on with the Kickstarter. We're shipping more stuff and stuff that's going to be happening this week. We're going to talk about that as well. We got stuff to show you, so lots of artworks. We're going to talk about a couple of more lawful good gods, and also we're going to show the servants of the lawful good gods as part of this thing, all of the images of those, and then we're going to have my friend Howard. So we're having another gooey weekend from some people who came out here to who really helped us out in the Kickstarter, and thanks to all of you who helped us out in the Kickstarter. So my friend Howard is a PhD. So I said in the gooey den this morning, is that pronounced food? I want everybody to tell me, is that pronounced food? Because that's what it sounds like to me, and I think if that's the case, they should change that name. Anyway, he's a doctor, Camera Mendy. He's a doctor, yes. So we're gonna talk to him about the math of TTRPGs for a few minutes. And then we also we have a couple of monsters from our friends, right? So we I think Geeky gave us the silvered crabs, which we're going to show, and then Marvelous Christie also gave us the Night Pegasus, which is marvelous as well. So we're gonna show those, and let me think. Is that and of course we're gonna do the reading from the Chronicles of the Ventenium Alunax.
I think that instead of listing it, we should just start doing it.
All right, well, I'm sorry.
What do you think?
Yeah. No, all right.
Anyways, and we don't want to make too many promises because, like, we've been saying that we're going to go over the Maroon for like 6 weeks now.
We're doing the Maroon today, and if we run a little over, right?
We'll see what ends up happening. Okay, let's start with our gooey art. And so this is one that was featured in our very new newsletter.
Yeah. So I hope y'all are liking that the gooey news thing that we're sending out, all things gooey, and we're going to try to keep making that better and better as we go on here. This art was featured because what we're working on the Essenverd right now. I think many of you know that, and we've had some wonderful help from folks, and not just a few folks, quite a few. We've got all kinds of wonderful contributions in there. Pam gave us this wonderful thing called the Circle of Bleak that I think you're going to love. And also Harry gave us these mud mounds. They're both in the Bleak Bottom Bog. They're really, really incredible. We had Kendrick, who worked with us along with Josh and Kaya, and we worked on the Donvan area, and of course AJ and Keith, and they worked with Jim, and we did the Archipelago, and the Valandians are in there, and we've got wonderful Matt and Daniel who did this marvelous Estenasa, which I think you're going to love. Anyway, we're going over all that stuff, but part of the Essenverd is a discussion around the forests like we did in the Westward. And Marvelous Carrie, who's kind of our Feyari expert, if you were to call her that, right? She has worked on that with yours truly a little bit, and we've commissioned a couple pieces of art for the forests, and this is one of them. And I think it is really, really pretty, and it's got a marvelous sort of Fey feel to it. And I hope folks are liking it. You got any comments in the chat about it?
Yeah, everyone's saying that they love this art.
Yeah, I think. I
have a question about
that.
Yes,
of course.
So we talked with Carrie a couple weeks ago, and she was telling us about the Wild Hearts.
Yeah.
Is this an image of the Wild Hearts?
It is not. I'm actually doing an image of a Wild Heart. So Wild Hearts, I'll diverge for just a moment, but Wild Hearts are actually the sort of the core of the Feyari power. And they are ancient, and I want to call them this, they are ancient beings, right? So these Wild Hearts are actually living, they're sentient, and they are fed by emotion, right? And there's a lot of mystery surrounding the Wild Hearts. There's a lot of wonder about Wild Hearts, and both the Seelie and the Unseelie have them. And around the Wild Hearts themselves, they project a barrier, a protection, an aura, if you will, that can go out some miles from the center of where the Wild Heart is. This is called a Wildairn. And the Wildairn is what you experience when you sort of move from the normal forest, if you will, to the Fairy forest, right? And it's got this, it changes everything, and the Wild Heart monitors everything that's in the Wildairn, and there's just a lot of really wonderful lore around these Fairy, and I'm really excited to see, as people get the Westford tomes, that how they respond, because I think it is marvelous, and our take on the Fairy and the courts and the lore is unique. So I'm excited to get folks' feedback about that. Yeah. All right, Cameramandy, what is next?
Okay,
yes.
So we are going to start showing some of these.
Yes, so we are going to talk about a couple more of the lawful good gods today. And as part of our working through sort of the stuff that we're doing with all of you all, is we are also going to be illustrating the servants of the gods, because it is far more likely that your players will encounter a servant of the gods rather than the gods themselves. So this is the Grindyles, and these are all servants of the lawful good gods. So whether you are the lawful good god of light and such like Radion, or if you are the lawful good god of the crystal flow, right, which is Evoke, these servants are all within your planes. All right, and so Grindyles are marvelous. I think they are really an interesting take on a creature, and I hope that people liking that, Cameramandy, is quite marvelous. Yes, this Grindyle. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I put the names, like you can see, like this next one, Alestrial.
Yes.
Is it that this is the name of this person, or is this the name of the god?
That is the name of the beings. So it's
like Alestrials.
Yes.
It's okay.
So there are more than one Grindyle that are serving yes,
Okay.
exactly right. And so there can be particular Grindyles that are named a certain way, right? Or Lestrals, which is the next one that is there.
Yes.
And I really think these are quite marvelous as well. They've got this sort of feeling, a little bit of this elvish thing going on. They're, darker of skin and more, this golden hair. And it's just, they really
glorious.
Isn't that a wonderful image? And this one might be my favorite of the lawful good servants, right? So if you want to show
this next one's my favorite.
Yeah, this is really marvelous. This is called the Illumial. And the Illumials they appear sort of as females, actually, and they are very intriguing. They wear these masks. You can't see their eyes. And they
are
have
COVID safe.
Yeah, right. That is right. They're COVID. That's right. You can't get the COVID from an Illumial. Yes, that's exactly right. Anyway, so we have a broader image of it where you can see it all in its full glory. But just looking at it there, right, it's just got such a wonderful feeling. And as we move forward, of course, our goal is to bring our artworks to your tables, right? We're not just going to put them in a book and have them sort of sitting there just for the game master to look at. We want you to be able to look at them as well and be able to show them to your players.
Jens wants to know, how do they see?
So they have these are outworldly beings, right? So they have methodologies which enable them to be able to sort of sense that which is around them. Yes, so they are able to sort of know those things, right? It is as if they are seeing truly. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So at the next one, right? So this is the Centaurial. And these are the true sort of warriorific, right? All of them can fight. Believe me, your players are not going to want to run up against some of these without having some power, right? But the Centaurials are sort of the true soldiers of the lawful good gods, and they can make an awful lot of mess if they are given the opportunity, so to speak.
What instance would happen where the players would fight one of these?
So we will, as we move forward, Cameramandy, no question, we're going to do the Cyclopedia Religica, where we're going to outline all of the gods, and we are going to talk about maybe doing a little bit of the planes and what's going on in the planes, and just create more expansive information about the gods, how they work, and their servants, right? And so you could very well encounter these beings on the planet Zyathé, right? But you could also encounter them if you happen to travel to some of the godly planes, right, that are out there, or even the demi-planes. Right?
I know this is crazy, but when you said the planet Zyathé, I just never thought of Zyathé as a planet before.
Yeah, spinning in the Sulion
I
system.
know.
Yeah.
It's always the world of Zyathé, and then now I'm imagining that somewhere in our universe there is a planet, and we are writing the history of it. So
there's nothing. I tell you, I get so much pleasure out of this. I'm working with I mentioned on the Essenvert right now, and there's 15 or so contributing authors. There's probably 40 or 50 folks who have put contributions in there, and it's really it's incredible. I talk about this all the time. I put up a post a long time ago, and it was one of the reasons why I asked Kendrick to kind of help with the Donvinians, and it is because he wrote this thing called Dragon Charred Korat. And so this marvelous recipe is not really a recipe because we haven't done that yet, although Alexander and a number of others, I think Pam, and there's a lot of people. In fact, Alexander showed me a cookbook this morning, right? I'm getting some push on having us do some recipes. But anyway, this marvelous story about this Dragon Charred Korat will appear in the Essenverd. And then, of course, I'm working through it, and marvelous Christina and Jason send this incredible tale, which I'm not going to go into. I've actually put it up in the den. And I know a lot of people don't tend to read long copy and that kind of stuff because the Facebook is quick and all that kind of stuff. But that tale that is in there from Christina is quite marvelous, and it will tell you about a certain ship that flies around. And it is not, unlike almost every other airship that exists in Zyathé, it is not Etherean in nature. And indeed, it is not even in any way, shape, or form constructed like said Etherean. So it's a piece of artwork that I really want to do. I'm going to get it done. Somebody's going to make this marvelous thing. If you get a chance, check it out in the den. It's in there. It's a great story. If not, you'll have to wait till you get the Essenverd
I'm excited. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. So we got one more, right? Yes. So these are the Vundiles, and you will find some commonality between some of these as we go forward. The Vundiles are sort of the administrators, if you will, of the lawful good, the good gods, right? So the lawful good gods, and so the Vundiles sort of do their thing, and they kind of keep everything running, right? They're the managers, all that kind of stuff, and so they kind of appear sort of as sort of flaming-haired, sort of. Nomi creatures, and there's both sort of male and female kind of directions on them. So, but I really I love the image of this, and I think they're a whole lot of fun.
I like the flaming beard.
Yeah. Well, we got another one. I actually put one up in the den today from the neutral gods, which I put one up for folks to take a peek at, which I think is pretty cool. Don't switch up the camera, Mandy. I'm going to drink from this can.
That's fine, because look, what he's talking about is the Gooey Game Masters Den of Enlightenment, and I have put the name up here on the screen. So please join us if you're not already in either our Gooey Game Masters Den of Enlightenment or our Discord. We have a lot of fun. Yeah,
it's really and it keeps growing. I mean, we're gonna Mandy. We don't even really advertise for this at all.
Except for right now.
Yeah, we're going up to anywhere else. It's not like we pay for followers, all these crazy things that supposedly go on. And here we are, closing in on 1,400 members, and we haven't had a convention in a year plus. So it's really wonderful. And to all of you who really, I know there's lots of lurkers, and I don't mind lurkers. Lurkers are cool, man. No shade. But to those of you who post interesting things and put stuff up, I really believe it is sort of this Facebook. And I know some folks don't like Facebook, but I encourage you, even if you don't like Facebook, make a fake profile. Because there's so many wonderful, creative people here. And they really are. And I am always astounded at something someone writes in there, Camera Mandy. You know what I'm saying? They put a little story or a tale, and they put it in there, and you read it. And I read almost virtually everything that folks put up, by the way, and others do as well. But Jacob and Natalia and their wonderful tales about the heart foxes, right? And Gwagnik, Chris, throws up stuff about rain, and Ben Simon, Ben and his little group has an entire whole little bit of tale that's going to appear in the Essenverd, which is just really wonderful, and it just goes on and on and on as more and more people sort of become part of this thing and contribute and do all that kind of stuff. And I really would encourage you, come join the den and just lurk around a little bit. But for those of you who post, we're going to post up a couple things, right, Cameron?
Yeah.
We're going to show some stuff.
So this is something that we're trying to do, is like show off some of the fun stuff that we have in the Gooey Den. So Alphinius handpicked this.
Yeah, so Kevin does a lot of putting up interesting images. There's a number of folks who do, and those of you like Jim and Adam and
I would call them
certainly Michelle.
I can't say that word. I was trying to find it.
Say any word you want, Cameron.
I can't say
Go
that.
ahead, say it. Is it an F word?
No, it was a trademarked term for a certain tabletop game. No, I was going to say like pornspiration for tabletop role-playing games.
Yes, so. It is, right, because people look at these images and there's some magnificent ones. Heather's put up some just beautiful stuff. I mean, it's just, and you look at these images, and if you're willing to take a moment and ponder what they could mean for your world, right? That is what I always do when I see these images, and I think about what could I do with that, right? And that is the inspiration of this creative thing that we have going, and I just can't tell all of you who are doing this, I appreciate it. This one is very interesting because if you look at it, right, this is a real, this is like a place they got a body in there, at least I hope they still got a body in there. Or
maybe it's like treasure.
No, I don't think so. Okay. I think that they put that damn thing over there because they were worried whoever went down there was going to come back. I think that's what they were.
I think that they were trying to protect. Maybe it's a famous person's grave. We don't know, but yeah. Anyway,
it could have been to stop grave robbers. I guess that's a possibility.
Alphinius. Yeah. Okay. We're going to go to the next one.
All right. So Kevin, thank you. And then now this is important. There was some serious controversy in the Gooey Den.
This post had like 60 something comments on it.
Well, the problem is Elle tried to convince everyone that she was the drawer of this cube, right? And then Allie stepped in and tried to say she was the drawer of this cube. And of course, I had to confess that I was the actual drawer of this cube.
We know Alphinius is lying.
And then Mike says he was the drawer of this cube. So then there was all kinds of cubes being drawn, and then Elle defaced one of my cubes, and it was a terrible thing generally. But it became quite a subject and topic of banter. And in truth, Elle can be a little cantankerous at times. Yes, and so
I don't agree. I love Elle.
Well, everyone loves Elle. It doesn't mean you get cantankerous yourself.
I'm cantankerous this morning. No.
Yes, you have been. But we did a pretty good job putting this thing together. Anyway, let's look at the next one.
Okay, so this was last night.
Yeah, so we are privileged. You all know that my friend Howard is here and Marvelous Nick, who came to play with us this weekend. They sponsored us in the Gooey adventure, right? And so they came
Kickstarter.
out, in the Kickstarter. Yes, thank you. And we had my dear old friend Larry, who Howard and Larry are both friends, and they came, and of course Gooey Lawrence was there, and Mike joined us, and so we played the same general game that our friends have played in the past, being Larry and Lawrence and Michael. And I put a little twist on it. So what happened was they brought in new characters that came in the aftermath of what happened with their last characters. And I think it was very interesting, and we're looking forward to having a little more of it today as we go on. So, all right. So this is fun. This, my friends, yes, is our booth, and I know a lot of you have seen it. I got a lot of wonderful comments in the den. Thank you for folks for doing it. We are actually here. We are this next weekend. We're going to be at Colorado Springs Comic-Con. Yes, we are going to be there. Ha ha! Yes. So if you are in this general area around here and you feel like coming to Comic-Con, come see us and say hello. I don't know how big it is. It's at the World Arena in Colorado Springs, so it's going to be that's a big place. So we'll have to see how many folks show up. All right. Yes. Cameron Mendy, I am belching.
And
are you hearing it? I hope not. Goodness gracious.
We're still trying to figure out what we're doing for Goo Morning Zayate, since Alphinius will be out selling his wares.
I want to step away from the booth and do it from there if we can make it work.
We'll see what the Wi-Fi situation looks like.
That's the fear, right? Is the Wi-Fi, not work.
We'll keep you updated. But in the meantime, this gorgeous shirt by Gooey Cube.
This is the Level Up Game Masters shirt. And if you are coming to Gen Con and you RSVP, please make sure you RSVP. You got to give us your shirt size and. Goodness, Cameron Mendy, I have to guess.
Yes, Alphinius is just burping into his microphone. I'm
not trying to. Should I cover it?
I'm so sorry, Al. I will talk. So, You should have gotten an email with information for Gen Con, where we will be having a wonderful party that we're still in the process of planning, even though it's like a month away. But yes, if you come to our party, we will have shirts, but you have to go fill out a form.
Yes, it's in the link's going out. We're sending emails. So if you aren't, and that's another thing, if you aren't getting emails from us, go on there and make sure you're subscribed, and then check us to make sure that you haven't, blocked us in the past or said, these gooey things are spammy, or gooey or whatever.
I mean, we do spam a little bit. I'm
sorry. We are very good. Believe me, I get a lot of spam from a lot of other RPG folks. I get dailies.
Ray Baker wants a shirt that says "Covered in Goo."
Yeah, right. Yes. Raymond, yes, you and I think a lot alike. That's why I like that my goo or yours shirt. But some people said inappropriate. Camera Mandy was involved in that.
I just like to keep things a little bit more PG. Okay. Next up.
Yeah, this is wonderful. So this, as many of you know, we do these portraits, right? And folks can get them. They can trade, if they've done work for us or whatever. They get these portraits, and this is Marvelous Todd. And Todd has been around. He's been gooey for a long, long time. And Keith, who is our marvelous friend, actually gifted this to Todd, which is just wonderful. Keith is just a great member of this group, and he's very kind and wonderful to a lot of folks. Anyway, so this is well, help me out, cameraman, because I can't see it. The name is right there. It's right.
Graybeard. It's hard for me to see it as well.
It's anyway. Forgive.
Is it?
It's Frotjif or something like that. It's kind of got this interesting sort of thing going on, and I have to talk to.
Fritjof.
Fritjof, that is it.
Thank you. 12 Stone.
Fritjof and Graybeard, and Fritjof is actually a deeping dwarf, right? And is associated, they say, with these Valandians, right? And the blood touch thing, and blood touch people disappearing, and all of this stuff that is going on. And so there is a lot of concern that this guy might not be a good guy. So I guess you're going to have to learn a little more about him as we continue down the path, so to speak, and we'll find out about old Frotjif Graybeard. Yes. So.
Yeah, one of the really cool things about what we do is that we like to incorporate our people into our stories.
Yes. So we are definitely. I mentioned we're approaching some 100 portraits of folks that are done. I have a lot of backstories of a number of them. I'm actually, as we move forward with Darkenhaven, because quite a number of them are going to appear in Darkenhaven. We'll sort of finalize some of those backstories and bring them a little more into the scope of the things that we are doing. So we're pretty excited about that, and I can't wait to meet some of these marvelous characters as we round out the stuff that we are producing over the next few months. So, all right, what's next, Cameraman?
Next is your reading.
Oh,
I know.
Well, I can do that. Now we, as we have discussed, there's this laptop down here, right? So that's why we stack up these books, so you can't really see the logo and all of that kind of stuff. And this is the reading from the Weirded World, right? So this is the Ventenium Alunax, and we've been reading it every session. And Cameramandy, I guess you're going to put these all together into sort of one little thing when we're all done.
So I have been completely booked out for the last few weeks. I'm really trying to get to. I transitioned at a terrible time. I transitioned at a terrible time. Okay, but yes, basically what we're doing is I have saved all of these recordings, and we will be posting them as basically an audiobook on YouTube. And so it'll be a whole playlist on YouTube where you can start and listen to Alphinius reading The Weirded World.
Yeah, this Ventenium Alunax really tells the history, right, of all that we are doing. And so listen, there's so much stuff that is cool. In fact, we're going to talk to Howard, and we're going to have a little chat with him about math. But Nick, who is here, I was going to bring him in, but then I decided, and he doesn't know this yet, but I'm not going to have him come on because I want to hold off. Nick, along with Marvelous Stefan and Anthony, with a little bit of help from Devin and Chris and a couple of other folks, are helping us with Sundestia. And Sundestia is I'm as excited for it as I was for Verdestia. And it has some marvelous things that are going on there. And so when we do that, we're going to actually do sort of a round table with the Sundestian folks, because I think that you'll be very marveled at their backgrounds because of what they know in terms of why the inspiration for Sundesti.
So I'm going to do something really quickly.
Yeah,
okay, so we're going to save this for a little bit later and we'll go over it a little bit later, but I'm going to switch over to this other screen here.
You're switching a screen.
This
is called an improv, right?
Yeah.
This is, I don't know what the heck we're doing right now. So
look, I'm transitioning over here. So you can see Sundestia.
Well done, cameraman.
Is this little...
You want me to talk about it, or you?
I just wanted to show because sometimes to me I hear all these words. There's a lot of Gooey Cube has its own language, and so sometimes it's kind of hard to orient yourself. And when you say Sundestia, unless you know what the 7 continents are named, off the top of your head.
You are absolutely right. So we're going to do this tour here very soon, and the tour will begin with the world, and then we will begin to drill down. And I'm pretty excited about it. A lot of people really enjoyed the Darkenhaven thing that we did last time. And so we're going to start doing that, and we're going to have guests come on in certain circumstances to talk about certain things, and that'll be mostly you all, right? It's this is about us and this wonderful, wonderful group that we have. But Sundestia is inspired by Africa and the Egyptian world and the Near East, India, those kinds of places.
You did forget to put an end parentheses after India, and so
I totally screwed it up.
I'm just letting people know that I feel that pain because if you're like me and a little OCD. But we'll go over this map a little bit later in the show, but I just thought we'll cut over there while you're talking about
I'm glad you did that. That was a great idea. Okay. Excellent improv, cameraman. I give you the thumb up. My best. Yes, just like that. All right. So,
But we got distracted because we're actually doing the Weirded World reading right now.
So we're going to do the reading, and this is basically what has happened in the past here. Is that the 4 lords of corruption revealed themselves in the gods' war, right? Because they had deceived. Excuse me, I have to scratch my mustache, cameraman. But they had deceived the gods of evil that the gods of evil could overcome the gods of neutrality and the gods of goodness and win, right? And of course, then the 4 lords of corruption revealed themselves, and there was terrible things that happened. Gods died in the war, and then the creator awoke, right, Avoval, who had been sleeping. And these 4 lords of corruption had been siphoning power from Avoval for a long time while he slept. And this siphoning of power gave them quite an edge, if you will, right? And that flow that they used to siphon the power is actually what is the nether flow in this corrupted flow that exists within the entire of the Zyathés, right? The entirety of the Zyathés. And so the creator awakens, and then there is this terrible battle, right? And the creator, as Avoval is fighting with these lords of corruption, the 4 of them, right? Anakria and Nu'ul and Foende Uz and Azar, the Twisted, right? As he is fighting with these 4 lords of corruption, he realizes he can't win. And so what Avoval did was he sort of tricked them, and he took himself, merged his spirit, his thing, right, his essence. He merged his essence into the Zyathés, the Everflow, and used not only his own power but the entirety of the power of the Zyathés to banish the 4 lords to this place that is called the Never Place, and trap them there. And in doing so, he sacrificed his living self, and that is sort of where this thing sort of ends up, right? And the last line of the previous chapter is, and in that moment, the corruption ceased. So the next chapter is called Creation Renewed. All of creation wept in the aftermath. The loss of the Maker was something that none believed was remotely possible. The gods themselves wailed and screamed at what they had wrought. But even in their grief, there was joy. The gods felt the renewing of the Zyathés. They could sense their powers returning, even stronger than before. About them, they saw the spread of destruction and ruin recede. The plains were calmed, and the world of Zyathé began to heal. Suddenly, from the dust and ash that had once been the god Sylvain, a being of lightness arose. Naming himself Radion, he told the gods that the hand of Avovar had restored the light to the pantheon. The others who had been slain were likewise reborn. Andriana was now Viana. Aromar, restored as the goddess Stjorn. Sabrine was renewed as Disace, Verdana as Verdaus, and Thealos as Bern. Much to the dismay of the neutral and good gods, the gods of evil were also renewed. Flamerish was returned as Sluj, and Slajiv restored as the god Asmundus. Then the gods looked about at the Eterniverse and saw that even though the corruption had ceased and indeed been turned back upon itself, that scars remained. Zyathé was likewise not spared. The lands had been altered, many places had been burned by fire and brimstone, torn by the chaotic magics, or broken and darkened by the touch of the four lords of corruption. And the gods resolved to heal the life world, the thing that the Maker had loved above all other things in the creation. But the gods of evil were unrepentant. Even after all that had transpired, they still believed that the gods of neutrality and goodness had transgressed against them. And so in the days that followed, they removed themselves from the halls of gathering, vowing never to return. Meanwhile, far beneath the surface of the world of Zyathé, in the depths of the darkest reaches, a clutch of leathery-skinned eggs warmed in a great moist cave. And it came to pass that one and then another were cut open from the inside to bleed steaming, dank, foul-smelling water upon the stone floor. Slowly a taloned hand came forth, and then an arm, and then more. What emerged from those dark and vile cocoons were onyx-skinned terrors of slime and sharp teeth and muscle and menace, with great intelligence behind shining eyes. These had no history in the great making, and were not of the hand of Avovar, nor any of the gods. The Thule had been born. Yes,
dun,
one of my favorite.
dun.
Yeah, you like that one, Cameraman?
Oh yeah, and we were all impressed with how you didn't even stumble over some of those name pronunciations.
Well, I have practiced them more than most. Yes, is that fair?
No, it's very true. So, okay, so I'm gonna just let you know that we're gonna switch up some timing things because we are. We're already at 10:33.
Oh, yes.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to finish with some of the other pre-planned stuff, and then we'll put Howard in the last 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Yes,
right.
That's absolutely fine.
So, because we were going to put Howard right in the center, but I don't have time for two transitions.
Yeah, she's worried about transition, right?
Yes.
So, yes. But we're also going to play a couple videos, though, anyway, right? Give some people a chance to see some stuff, so it'll be fun.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and start with our map tour and go through that really quickly, and then we'll, not quickly, but like the right amount of time.
Yes.
We're not in a super rush, and then we'll get through our gods. And I'm sorry, but I do think the Myrune are going to have to wait yet another week because I just don't think it's going to happen. So, but let's talk about this cool place.
Well, okay, so. Can I have a little fun with this and tell a little bit of the history of it? And when we began, Cameraman, are you good with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So this thing began, in 2018 when the group of crazies here at Gooey Cube said, you need to publish your stuff. And I said, y'all are crazy, right? And so then we all started sitting together and we started, talking about what's the possibility of it. And being an old grognard game master, player that I am, but we would call ourselves enlightened grognards because there is sometimes a negative connotation associated with that. There were some things we wanted to adjust, and that was really important to us in the creation of the world. Some of the settings that people had done were maybe a little hackneyed. Maybe they, sort of took stereotypes that maybe they didn't need to take, things like that. And so we resolved that one of the things that we were going to do is those continents that were going to be inspired by continents in our world. And there are in particular, there are 4 of them, or locations in our world, if you will, cultures in our world. We were going to do our best to make sure that those things were very well represented, and also taking good lore from them, right? Because what happens is in a lot of these TTRPG settings that involve fantasy roleplay, it's all sort of European, and it's got this whole European stuff. But all of a sudden you have all this stuff that kind of creeps in from, mythologies from India, mythologies from Africa, mythologies from the Far East, right? And they kind of come in, and it sort of gets mashed up. And what we thought, especially after I talked to my wonderful friend Stefan, who is the sort of the lead on the Sundestian group, and he is working, I think, on his PhD. He's got his master's degree, and he knows a tremendous amount about sub-Saharan African culture, about Egyptian cultures, about Indian cultures, and then you'd be blown away at the other people who joined, and as I mentioned, Nick and Anthony and Devin and Chris and some of these others that are doing this, the backgrounds that they have brought to the table, and AJ, I should have mentioned AJ because he loves this stuff too. And so all of a sudden we're creating this world that I think you're going to be blown away at, because the culture, when you go to Sundestia and you meet the people of Sundestia and you travel to the cities of Sundestia, they are going to feel real. They are going to have this cultural backing. They are going to have this stuff that comes from our world, but mashed up like we did with Verdestia. But it's going to have a really different feel than Verdestia has. And we like that because that's the experience that we're trying to give to our players. All right, so that's sort of the background and how this whole thing sort of came. So then we began to talk about the continents. And what happened was we came to 4 continents were going to be sort of our main thrust, right? We obviously knew that we had a 5th continent that was destroyed. This is Resplanzia, right? Which was where the Thernic civilizations, the heart of it were. They were there. And of course, that is someday something we will publish, and something that I'm not sure a whole lot of parties are going to want to go and visit, right? But let us look at the map now, Cameron Mendy, so we can give people a little tour of each one of these and sort of discuss it. So we have the poles, right, which are Oblum in the north and Sublum in the south. And our goal with Oblum and Sublum is actually to make the poles a place to go. We want it to be interesting and intriguing. And by the way, this is another thing that we do. These giants of snow and frost, right? These kind of giants and other things that are sort of snowy and frosty creatures. We are going to create some environments where they are appropriate. In fact, stop right there, cameraman. You don't move for a second, because that's perfect. So these giants and things like that, they don't really want to come hang out in Sundestia. It's hot in Sundestia, right? They like cold, right? And so our goal is to sort of really make creatures of environment also appropriate for the environment in which they find themselves, which we also think is going to be a lot of fun, especially as we do monster contributions for the polls and all of that kind of stuff for you. So that'll be a joy. But also, if you look right here, these islands are highly volcanic and very, very hot, and there's a lot going on there. Well, those islands right there, those 2 that are the continent as well as a piece of it. This is where the fire giants and a number of other sort of fire focused creatures. This is where they live. That was an aside, Cameron Mendy. But anyway, the poles, I think you're going to love them. There's some marvelous things. There's some places there that are not afflicted by the weather, which gives us some interesting sort of oases for folks to discover and all of that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Like what are like these details on the map?
So this is actually, let's go ahead and go to Sundestia. Let's go slowly over there, and let's go to Sundestia. And let's sort of zoom in on the top left there, the north, what we would call the northwest, right? Do you see that enormous sort of sinkhole?
Oh my goodness,
there?
That is so cool.
So this sinkhole that we have actually not final sort of named what it is and what it does, right? But it is what is dumping the water out there on the other side. All right. And it literally comes out of here and falls out of the sky.
My mouth is like open right now. That is a really cool detail.
Well, there's a lot of I think folks are going to love all these little details, the things on our maps.
Let me ask you,
yes,
if you had like a ship and you needed to get to that other section really quickly. Could you put your ship in this hole and pop out the other side?
So there are some who have tried this, right? This is like the barrel going over the Niagara Falls, so to speak, right? But there are some that believe you could use it this way if you could survive the torrent. And so part of this idea of could this be done, right? Because it would really be very convenient. But stay where you were. Oh, you want to go show it? Go ahead. That's fine.
I'm just showing where
it dumps in the water off Zin, right?
Yes.
And actually creates quite a significant cacophonious circumstance, right? Lots of noise as well as lots of waves in that area. So a lot of the mariners have to sort of be careful, right? Because this water falling out of the sky blows water all over the place, right? So anyway, so most of the civilization, if you will, on Sundestia resides in this peninsula, right? And I'm not going to go all into the various empires and such that are there. We'll do that later. But these three marvelous empires that are there, they sort of try to one-up each other all the time. And there's a lot of wonderful African and Egyptian and Near Eastern lore that we're putting in here and really trying to give it this kind of a wonderful feel. So this is Sundestia. But Sundestia is really... it's a little like Africa, as we noted in our thing, in our world, a little like Egypt, a little like India. That's our goal, to kind of mash that up. And of course, there's all these jungles and there's these savannas and all of these marvelous, places. But there is also this thing, which if you go to the right a little bit, there you go, cameraman. This is the Unsarah Sea. And this is one of the things that I'm particularly proud of in the world of Zyathé. And the Unsarah Sea is made of a substance called merc crystal. And when Resplansia exploded, this sea was created from everything that lay to the east of the mountains. This was also where, those of you who are paying a little attention, this is also where the new race that we put out of the fire people, right, that we have not named yet, there's a lot of lore coming. This is also where they were mostly based. And that is why there are so few of them left in the world of Zyathé, because most of their people were wiped out in that horrific calamity, because this is where they lived. And the Unsarah Sea, this merc crystal, is a physical substance, but it acts like water. And it can be swum in if you are capable.
This dark stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
And the Komari, that's where that picture of the sand ship, if you want to try to dig that up real quick, cameraman, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, geez. I don't know if I can. I can't do it on the whim.
Okay, then don't feel. But this is where the Komari tribes and a few others, but mostly the Komari tribes, sail their sand ships between their various secret hideouts and their secret mines. Because the place in the world of Zyathé that is most likely for you to find flowstones is the Unsarah. Although some believe that Resplansia itself has got much flowstone there as well.
That is some really cool.
Yeah, it's good
history.
lore.
Yeah, see, this is why I love this show.
So that is Sundestia, and we can, if you want to stop there, cameraman, we can do the other 4 continents over the next 4 weeks, or we can go.
Yeah, we'll probably have to because it's already 10:43. Sorry, we just get talking, like we just can't help it.
Listen, are we going? Listen, folks, really, you're in the chat right now. This is good, right? This is something you like, and if we get a little off our deep end, really give us feedback, because we want this to be great for you. We want you to enjoy it.
So here's what I appreciate is that, for instance, Jacob's in the chat here, and he's giving his backstory that they've developed based on all of this. So for me, I work at Gooey Cube, and I don't know this stuff. Just to be frank, I am in my world doing videos, and I hear all these words, and it's a lot. But when you really dig into it, you can really create something super special. I don't know.
The Hard Foxes were sort of some of the beginning of this whole thing.
Yeah.
We had Dan and Steve, who did some of the first portraits, and they along with Lawrence appeared in chapter 3. But the Hard Foxes and our marvelous friend Francis, they actually appeared earlier. And so the players actually encountered the Hard Foxes and Jacob and Natalia Excuse me, Cameron Mandy, I shouldn't drink that bubbly stuff. But Jacob and Natalia have created all this wonderful lore about the Heart Foxes, and they have a place in Darkenhaven, and they are actually friends with a number of folks in Darkenhaven, like Rainy Windsong, right, and Torlak Silvermaw, right, and quite a few others, right, including yours truly, Alphinius Goo. So this lore about the Heart Foxes, and Jacob actually, there's one story in particular that I want to include in the Darkenhaven set that he has written. And I can't remember, Jacob, if you gave me the final version, if you're still working on it, but it is a sidebar that I want to include because it is just beautiful, the tale of the Heart Foxes. And I'm hoping that this lore will build for lots of our people, not just a few, right?
Yeah.
In fact, we sat yesterday, Cameron Mandy, with Nick and with Howard, and with Lawrence, your brother, right, and Larry, and talked about this adventure that we're collaborating on that begins in Darkenhaven and might end up in the sewers. We'll have to see. But how those 5 characters play into the tale, even though they are not the main characters, obviously the players are the main characters, but how they fit into the tale and how they become a part of that. And that was part of this discussion. And this is the hope that, for me at least, that someday people will look back and there will literally be thousands of characters in the world of Zyathé, and they will all be us. They will be our players. They'll be our people.
And I love it.
Isn't that something? Right? Yes.
Well, okay. So like, just for like an instance though, because like this is going to go up on YouTube and the comments aren't going to be there. So I just want to read this like instance of how like Jacob has taken what we developed here with the lore and worked it into their backstory. He said, Merc Crystal is what Natalia Heartfox used to make her cat, Garrisol, sorry if I butchered that cat name, she gathered a bunch during her and Jacob's adventures there in search of their missing children. And so I love the fact that like they took something like that I had never even heard of. Like I've been doing Gooey Cube for as long as it's been around and I still hadn't heard of it. And so like hopefully with like Goo Morning Zyathé, breaking this up into kind of like bite-sized pieces will help people really be able to dive into the history and into the lore of Gooey Cube.
Yeah,
so.
Well, and Corey sent me this thing because he had this concept of this sort of Merc Crystal golem. It's not really a golem, so you don't call it that, but it's not really an elemental either. So it's its own sort of creature. And it's very cool. And we're actually, and we're going to show a couple monsters here in a second, right, Cameron Mandy?
Yeah, that's next on our
but
list.
this Merc Crystal creature that he created. And by the way, as a number of folks know, down in the Unsarah, there are worms, right? And this is our nod to marvelous Frank Herbert and the wonderful thing that he did with Dune and how much we loved that work and just amazing when you read that tale, especially number 1, right, the first one. And I guess there's a movie coming out and all that kind of stuff, so we're all excited about it, right? And the worms are not the same as the worms, right, in that, but they are interesting and they are our little nod as we do in a lot of our things to Frank Herbert. So.
Awesome.
All right, so let's look at
do
this
some
one.
Monsters.
Yeah, so this is great. So
okay, wait. So I'm going to show you a monster, and this is from like a specific place, right?
So this is actually this is found in the world of Zyathé in actually a number of different continents, and this was a marvelous contribution by Christie, and this is the Night Pegasus. Also called the Vluulak or something. What is it, cameraman? Is it Vluulak? Anyway, it's no big deal. It'll be in the Monster Manual, Monster Materials, and Encyclopedia of Monster Girl. Sorry about that. So this marvelous creature has some wonderful stats and lore around it, and it is obviously beautiful, right? It's a just impressive creature, and
Lady Dragon wants to ride this.
Oh yeah,
she wants to know if she wants to know if it's tameable.
Yeah, right. So there's some discussions around this. Actually, as we move and things begin to more develop, right? Questions start getting called, right? So some of the questions that are getting called are like, how do flow cannons work? And if they're on ships, how far can they shoot, right? So this is all the stuff that's sort of dancing around. Now all of a sudden we start talking about flying, right? And how many, what kind of flight is happening in there, and is it easy? And so there are wyverns that are in the Northernlands, and the barbarian tribes. There's a few of them that actually are able to ride those. It's hard though; they're very hard to train. This dragon riding thing doesn't really happen very much. These children of Dracondra and Zandraka and the other gods that helped make them are not really inclined to be beasts of burden. They are much more elegant and sophisticated than that. So there's not a whole lot of Dragon Rider things going on in Zyathé. There might, of course, be at your table any exceptions that you want to make, but it's not like you're going to run into a fleet of Dragon Riders all over the place, right? So this creature certainly feels like one that could possibly be ridden in the right circumstances, right? So now you've got this wonderful opportunity for a higher level character to end up with a steed. That is quite interesting and a beautiful piece of artwork. Yes. Oh yes, this is a silvered crabs. So this is from our friend Geeky, and this is a marvelous little creature that they swarm together and they sort of adopt a treasure hoard, right? And they're like, this is our treasure, right? You can't mess around with our treasure, and if you mess around with our treasure, we're gonna swarm you, right? So you think about those beetles in that Mummy movie, right? And these little guys, right? And I thought the artwork, we talked about it with the artists. I talked quite a bit about how we were gonna execute it and make it look really cool, right? But because they're just little things, right? These silvered crabs. And the artist Benjo came up with this, and it is just wonderful. We talked back and forth about how we'd structure it, and it just I think that the artwork. I hope people are loving these because I find them quite amazing. So. All right. So any questions in the chat about either of these creatures, Camera Mandy?
No. Right now the chat is. Someone was wondering about the dragon, because you mentioned something about a dragon.
Oh yes, the Dragons of Zayate. So we are going to have an interesting take on dragons. They're not going to be certainly. Our goal is not to rehash and remake another world. Our goal is to really make Zyathé relatively unique and interesting. That's why the magics are corrupted. That's why we have a lot of these things that are not quite the same. Flow stones and how the Zyanthus works and lots of folks have helped, as in our contributions and writings and such like that to help coalesce these things, right? And we're actually working on the Cyclopedia Magica right now, even as we do this show. So the dragons really are these ancient creatures. They are long-lived. There's some wonderful lore, by the way, that Carrie did some work on that. AJ did some work on that. If you get the Westward tome, and you read the tales of Worm's Fire, right? And this is one of the cities in the Republic. And there's some wonderful lore around Worm's Fire. And in fact, Zane has a little place that you go by there when you're heading up to Worm's Fire. Zane gave us a nice little contribution there. So anyway, so when you get a chance and you can open up this marvelous tome. And by the way, for those of you who are still waiting, because I know we've shipped out some, 180 or 200 or something, and I think we got about 100 more to go. I think we will get them all out next week. So everybody who's kind of been waiting now for this interim.
There's no context. You have to say what the context of
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
is.
This is the interim shipments we've been doing, which contain Chapter 4. They contain the Westward tome, map packs if you ordered them for the Westward, and Gooey dice. And if you ordered a T-shirt, you get one of those too. So all that stuff is kind of going out, and we should get the rest of them out next week. So we're excited to finish that and get everybody their stuff. So.
Okay. So I have one more question that the audience is begging to have answered, and then we're gonna go. We're going to do a transition.
Moon.
Yeah. How many flow cannons are required to make a rocket to get to Zyathé space?
So I don't know if that's going to happen. Flow cannons can be powerful, no question. But we had a lot of discussion around this, and I think most game masters will agree this is the right move. So you think about this piracy thing and these cannons, and ships are hundreds and hundreds of yards away from each other, and they're sort of shooting at each other and sinking each other. This is not really a tabletop war game, right? This is not what we play, right? And most of the adventures and the things that happen are for the most part surrounded around a small group of players. And so the thought process is that it is probably more interesting if flow cannon have short ranges. And so these ships have to get closer to each other. And that also, of course, means that you can swing across on ropes and, climb onto the other ship and have all these battles and all this marvelous stuff going on. So that is the probably where we are going with flow cannon. Certainly fusils and those others, they're going to have, more like ranges of bows and those kinds of things. In fact, maybe a little shorter in a lot of instances. And this gives more interest to ship combat, because it's not just about shooting at each other. Now your players get to go across and, face the squid-faced dude, from, that movie, right? So we think that's going to be fun. So I don't know how many cannon it gets to put together to go to a shooter in space, because I don't know if it'd go up that high. Ha-ha!
Okay. So we're going to transition. We're going to be going a little bit late here with Howard because it's already 10:55. We just get talking. I'm so sorry. So hang out if you can for a conversation with Howard about the math of tabletop role-playing games. And then if not, we're going to post this on YouTube, so you can check it out a little bit later too. I am going to transition over to something really cool right now as we get Howard situated into the studio. So is this the
video of the dungeon, the adventure?
Yes.
So just so everyone knows, this crazy long-running sort of play-by-mail game that we've been running in the Discord, the Great Gooey Adventure, is coming to an end, right? And people have gotten gold, and they're going to get to trade them in on some little prizes and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people actually had fun. I think some people actually thought it was totally onerous and hated it. So,
it was really fun. I played actually, like Ben and James, who play on my team or have been in the chat today. Listen, it was a lot of fun, but it was long because we started this like over a year ago.
Yes.
And basically it started with Alphinius, and then eventually I had to be like, Alphinius, you're too busy. Pass this off. And then Elle took over, and she's done a really great job of, keeping on top of it. And
yes, she has.
So, but it was a really great time. And so anyway, this is the video that we made to kind of introduce the crypts of Zak, where this whole adventure took place.
All right. And then we'll talk to Howard when we come back.
Yes, indeed. Okay. See you soon.
Far in the history of the region that is now known as the Republic of Zoranthia, perhaps 300 years or so following the Woe of Ruin, a human warlord by the name of Vengus Zaxandor and his mixed-race horde held the veil in which the city of Sundrun may now be found. This group had been pillaging the regions both north and south for some time, and many had been slaughtered by the savage attacks made by Zaxandor's forces. Vengus was aligned with a female Skundru's wizard named Zyathé and Dazis, who used many dark magics and fell conjurations to aid the warlord in his conquests. She had promised the warlord that he would eventually be king of the entire Westford if only he trusted in her manipulations of the Everflow and followed the instructions she received from her visions. In time, Vengus overreached and came into conflict with the sovereignty of Brandonis, which at the time occupied a significant portion of land in what is now western Anvala. The forces of Brandonis were formidable, and Zaxandor's forces were routed, but not before many of them were slain by Vengus' forces, who were bolstered by fearful creatures made of black smoke and ash. The tales tell that the final battle raged and Zaxandor was slain. Zyathé cursed the Brandonis people, promising that Zaxandor and his forces would return from the dead to seek vengeance, even if their bodies were burned. When all was over, the priests of Brandonis counseled that the warlord's army should be buried, not burned, in a locality protected by the gods to prevent the curse from coming true. Thus were all the dead placed beneath the ground in the crypts of Zaxandor, with guardians of magic and more warding the location. It is said that they were buried with all their weapons, armor, and even their horses in a great pit beneath the earth. It is also rumored that on the advice of the priests, even their magical weapons and treasure were buried in the depths to keep the curse at bay. Over the centuries, the story became legend, the legend became lore, and much of the truth of the tale has been forgotten. The name of the place was shortened to the Crypts of Zax, and the fearful curse of the Skundru's wizard lost in the sands of time. In recent years, more than a few adventuring parties have come to the crypts, but none have returned.
Yes, will you? Will you have the stamina to go for like a year plus in the Great Gooey Adventure? That's what you want to know, if you will, yes? So marvelous, hello! So my friends, I'm sitting here with an old friend of mine. A long time, right? It's been a long time, yeah?
A long time.
So this is Howard. And Howard, we met when we were in California many, many years ago, and we played a lot of games together while he was getting his baccalaureate degree.
PhD.
And then your PhD.
I already had a bachelor's degree.
So you got your PhD at the University of California at Berkeley, which is fairly prestigious university, yes?
Yes, they're pretty strong university, especially in the sciences.
Yes, and you got your PhD in, what was it, sir?
Math.
Yeah, math.
That's what it
PhD.
Says on the diploma.
Yes, math. So listen, all of you all out there, he knows more than you do. So Howard actually has helped me in a number of different instances where I've gone and asked him about sort of, is this odds, right? You helped me with the Deccan Perilous Fortuity. Remember that?
Yes.
I'm going to just introduce. So Howard, your beard is touching the microphone, which is making a crunching sound. So if you
uncrunch.
Yeah. So there we go. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
I should have put it on the
other side. I wasn't expecting you to look at Alphinius when you were talking to him for some reason.
You can look at me all you want. It's looking, yes.
Yes.
So anyway, so we worked on the deck on Fools Down, which is the poker game, right? And you made sure that everything was not, that I wasn't making a mistake, yes?
Yeah, it was not crazy.
Yes, right. So, yeah, it's a little crazy still, right? But, okay, so tell me about this, because we and I have talked about this a lot. There's statistics of this game. So, barring the possibility that the wizard has a contingency spell up, right? So tell us, this is my premise. My premise is play long enough, every party wipes.
Yeah.
So tell us how that works. Tell us in common person language.
Don't worry. Suppose you play every week.
Yes.
And there's some small chance that a character dies. Say, for convenience, I'm going to make it really simple. One character dies a year on average.
Okay.
Even though it's probably more than that.
And sometimes it's one a week, right? So
and you have 5 characters. Well, then about a fifth of the years, for a particular player, about a fifth of the year, their characters die. Right? Right. And so that happens 1/5 of the time, and 1/5 of the time, 1/5 of those times, a second character dies.
You thought is this a permutation or is a?
So
I shouldn't ask questions.
So
like
you
that.
play 25 years. One person has their character die 5 times, and another person has their character dies 5 times. But both of those are independent of one another. So what really happens is, on average, 4 times, the first person has a character die, 4 times, the second person has a character die, and once, both of their characters die at the same time.
So if you put all this math together, this is the idea that game masters are like casinos, right?
Yes. So if you multiply the probabilities together, you get the probability that the things happen at the same time if they're independent events, which is what I'm assuming here.
Right. So the premise, right? The premise being that's why I say all the time that game master's job is not to necessarily, sort of whack the players, right? Because I know there's some game masters out there that believe it. Because over time, the game itself is going to whack the players, right? Is that fair?
Yes. That's a fair way to say it. Over time, the game itself is going to whack the players.
Right. And so your job is kind of manage that a little bit, or else all of a sudden you especially if you play a lot, right?
Yeah. So the job is to manage the pace at which this happens. It's because you don't want it to happen too often.
Yeah, because that'll frustrate players and do all that kind of stuff, yes?
Yeah, you especially don't want the situation which could happen is on week 1, player A's character dies. Then on week 3, player A's character. You want to
Week 5, players A's. Yeah, players A's. That's what we call the bleeder, right? So that was Chris, right? Chris, I remember Trent, the bleeder. Yes, long ago, right? So, okay, so...
Trent didn't actually die that often, though. He just bled a lot.
He just fell down, right? There's a lot of falling down, right? So Howard has
can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just a player. I've never tried GMing before. But don't the GMs like choose monsters that won't wipe out the party, like at lower levels? I mean, maybe not so much Gooey Cube, because I know we've had like 10 encounters with like 1 rest, depending on the game. But it's the GM's job to also make sure that the monsters aren't overpowering the characters.
Right, but...
here's the math.
Okay.
In order to have an interesting combat, you have to choose monsters that have at least some chance to kill at least 1 or 2 characters in a combat. Some kind of reasonably small chance that that'll happen.
Okay.
So the way to think of the probability of killing a bunch of people at the same time is to not think about the probability of killing people, but the probability that they all stay alive. So suppose in a typical encounter, I was going to say 95% of the time they all live, but that gives a harder computation.
90.
Let's do 90. So 90% of the time everyone lives. Well, then if you have 2 encounters in a row like that, the probability that everyone lives through both of them is 0.9, which is 90%, times 0.9 or 0.81. So now the probability that they all live through 2 encounters is only 81%.
So this is a permutation.
No, again, this is straight up probability calculation.
Okay.
These are simpler probability calculations than the ones that involve permutations.
Got it. So basically, over time, right? This is what we're talking about.
If you multiply 0.9 by itself enough times, you can get an arbitrarily small positive number.
Right, got it. So even if you have monsters, cameraman, to answer your question, even if you have monsters that are not that tough, right? If it's still that small percentage, right, you can see how it builds up, right? And that, of course, doesn't count the big bad evil guy, right? The BBEG, right? And those guys typically are going to do it a little more than 10% of the time, right?
But even so, you probably don't want too many big bad evil guys that have an even chance against the party.
That's fair. I'm going to move this down because I don't want you.
I did it again?
No, I'm just making sure. I was anticipating.
No, I think that you just gave a really great GM tip, which was choose monsters that have, what was it, 1 to 2 times, or whatever you just said.
10% probability
of killing. Yes. So that way the encounters are still challenging, but not... Yeah, I think that was a great GM tip.
Yes. Okay, so we're not going to keep going. I just wanted you all to know that when you come
we can go a little bit more if we have more.
Are you okay? Are people asking questions?
Yeah, people are enjoying this.
Is there a question that anybody would like? So listen, Howard really does. He teaches math at the University of Michigan. Like, big deal, right? This is a big deal, right? That's a pretty prestigious school. And so if you got a math question, this is the time to ask it, because he's way less boring than a lot of those math people. Trust me.
Well, I'm wondering if there's more tips like that based on math. Okay, so Lady Dragon asks, what is the probability of encountering a shapeshifter and not knowing it?
So that is highly dependent on the game. So meaning the GM. So I can't answer this question. But given the way in the game passive perception works.
We're going to get some math.
The bigger the party, the more likely they are to notice something is off. So what you want to do here is know the chance that the typical member of the party will not notice, and multiply those together. Multiply that number by compute that number for each party member and multiply them together. That's the probability that no one in the party will notice. and that gets at the question.
If member 1 is 20%, they will notice 20% of the time, and member 2 is 40%, and then member 3 is 30%. So you got 20, 30, and 40.
Let's just do 3 so that I don't have to remember. Yes, that's what I was going to
stop. 20, 40, and 30. So
right, so I'm going to look at 80, 70, and 20, 40, and 30, was it?
20, 40, and 30.
Yeah. 80, 60, and 70%.
Is the percent that
0.8 times 0.6 times 0.7 is the percentage chance that they will not notice, and that's 0.336.
So 33% of the time.
So about a third of the time that a party with those notice probabilities will not see anything off.
So 66% of the time.
So if you play the games, the rules as written, they won't even have a clue. Not only will they not notice it as a shapeshifter, they won't get a clue.
But a third of the time, they will get a clue because, and as we add more party members, that
increases the likelihood that they will get a clue.
You see how he did that in his head? I can't do that in my head. I don't even know how to do anything like that in my head. Yes, that's very interesting. Anyway.
Actually, I'm not sure I did that right. I multiplied them together, but I didn't subtract.
Did you have to subtract?
Right. So I should have said it 2/3 of the time. Right. Because their chance of not, we were asking.
You're right. 33%
the original question was,
right?
How often do they not notice? Right?
Yes. Right. So 66 they won't notice, 33% 33% they will. They won't notice. 66% they will notice. Yes.
Okay, so we have some questions.
All right. Go ahead, math people. I see we have definitely brought on a guest that is interesting. This is marvelous. I can't believe you all are sitting there, picking your nose like you do in class, right?
We don't know what they're doing at home. Okay. So how does the challenge rating work with the statistics math you mentioned?
CR is a little tough. I'm going to let him answer, but CR is a little tough.
I actually don't really remember how CR is actually computed.
Yeah, because
it's not as completely straightforward as a mathematical formula.
You know what? We can do some stuff. If people want to put some questions down, we can actually have Howard answer stuff like that if you want to do that in the future. But what are we going to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, that is what I was going to say. If you give me time to work on this, I can at least give a reasonable, plausible, what you would expect in the mean kind of answer.
Right. So there's a lot of people out there who've talked about challenge rating not being very perfect. So, maybe my friend could help make it better, right? Something like that.
It can never be perfect because special abilities on the monster have different impacts depending on the composition of the party.
Sure, and also the skill level of the party, right? So even if you give two groups the exact same party, this group might be better at playing that party than this group, and that changes all the probabilities too, right?
Yeah, well, that changes that from the point of view of DMing. That changes things, but from the point of view of calculating what the challenge is,
because the math is still going to be the same, right? Of course it is.
To give a simple example of why just knowing how tough a monster is on average does not convey how tough a monster actually is what if the monster has any sort of special movement power and no one in the party does?
Oh, so they can outmove them, they can flank them, or they can crawl through the web or whatever it happens to be, right, to get to it. Got it. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions, or are we done, Cameraman D?
No. People are into this. Okay.
All right. We will bring more mathematicians. We'll have them every week.
Yeah. How can we calculate the best hit modifier based on the average party AC? Do you want me to?
Do you need a blackboard?
I
know. No. I'm
chalk.
We didn't even think to put a piece
the thing
of
in that question I'm actually pausing about is the word best. Right?
Optimal.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what is the optimal thing, right?
Hold on, I'm going to do this one more time.
Because the real way to do a computation would be to decide how often you want the party to hit and do the computation and compute what the bonus should be for that, which is very different from saying optimal, because optimal is as large as possible.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right,
Are you following this? It says, are you following this?
If your goal is to have the monster hit the characters, you just want its bonus to be as high as possible.
Omnitoast asked that question.
Yeah, Austin, marvelous. Yes, good question. Was that a decent enough answer, at least to understand where the old math guy is coming from here?
Hold on, I'm getting so many. I'm getting so many comments, guys. I have to read them all through. Okay.
I guess this might be another project that might take me an hour or so. The question of, can you estimate how long just blow-by-blow combat will be based on AC hit points and
so you think there's probably a formula that at least gets close?
Well, that should be easy to calculate because I've conveniently removed all the things that make it complicated. You notice how I didn't allow for any spells.
Yeah, right.
I didn't allow for any special abilities.
Because we all know there are wizards who fireball their own party, and that would just totally blow up the calculation.
Okay.
And the rogue.
Okay, next. This is from Gragnick. On Roll20, we tend to get a greater number of 1s and 20s. Do you have a calculation for how often 4 players plus a GM should be getting these numbers in a 3-hour game with an average of 4 rolls in 3 combats?
5 players, 4 rolls per combat, 3 combats.
Mm-hmm. That's 5 times 4 times 3, 60.
Yep.
Right. So you expect 3 1s and 3 20s over the course of this, if you only count those rolls.
Yes.
But the reality is that there are more rolls in the game than just the to-hit rolls.
Yes. Because there's also saves and all that kind of
there's
stuff.
Saves.
But if we're just talking combats only, then that's the numbers.
Well, that wasn't only just combat. That's only the to-hit rolls, right?
It. Yes, got it. Right. Yeah, it's fair.
So you expect 3 1s and 3 20s just on the to-hit rolls.
So I believe that Chris's question is very good because I think Roll20 has it set so that rolls more.
FYI, since we were talking about bad rolls, the Crypts of Zax. That bot.
There's
sucked.
A problem with that bot.
It is hugely problematic.
There's a problem with that bot.
Well, I don't know about the bot. I do know from discussions about video games that people's perception of percentages is very different from actual percentages. So if you have a bot that's working absolutely correctly, people will say it's skewed.
So the best way to do it is to actually test it, right? So Chris, you need to go in there with your players, do a bunch of rolls, right?
Or have the bot make at least 1,000 rolls and see what happens.
If you had the bot do 1,000 rolls, okay, 1,000 rolls, is that getting close to a sample size that is big enough that if you charted all the rolls, because it should come out. Yeah. Well, theoretically, if you made 2,000 rolls, is that a big enough sample size that you should get a relatively good distribution across all the numbers?
Okay, so
how'd you like that question?
Yes.
2,000 is
I can't do it in my head, but one can figure out what the probability of close to even distribution is. But the whole point here is the thing to note is that I said 1,000. The thing to note about this is it takes a lot of rolls.
Right. And that's the problem, right? That's the whole idea. Right. You're sitting there at the roulette table at the casino, game masters, right? Because this is how the casino works. And all of a sudden the number 22 comes up like 3 out of 4, right? The stupid ball goes in 3 out of 4 times to the 22. And you're like, that's not possible. And the
mathematician would say, yeah, well, if you see enough people play, someone's going to have that happen to them.
Right, over time, right? Even though it's a rare occurrence.
It's a rare occurrence, but it is not an impossible occurrence.
Interesting.
Right. All right, we have so many comments. I haven't even been able to read them all. Okay, next one. Sorry. Go ahead, Howard.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Howard.
Can I say one more thing about that?
Yeah.
There's also this cognitive bias that happens, where you look at a bunch of rolls, and inside your head, you choose the criterion dynamically. So you see a bunch of 20s on rolls, and maybe you see very few ones, and you say there have been a lot of extreme rolls, and they've been high, so the die is biased upward. But that happens at tables.
Just the normal course.
In the normal course of things, and so do the low rolls. And part of the reason we take note of it more often than we probably should is we don't, at the beginning of the night, say, I'm going to count the number of 20s. Right. Rather, we see the rolls and notice that there was a high number of 20s, right? Maybe last week there was a high number of 14s.
But nobody remarked on it because it was a 14, right? So last night, Nick, his first roll was a 1, right? Remember that? His first roll was a 1. And then like 2 rolls later, he rolled a 20, right? But we aren't taking into account that everybody else around the table is also rolling, right? And they're rolling 12s and 7s and 11s and all that stuff.
And not only that, the sample size is small. I wasn't paying attention, but I know I didn't roll a die more than 10 times.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there was no combat, so I did not roll the die more than 10 times.
Yeah, good role play last night. That was fun, man. We had a good time. What you got, Camera Mandy?
Okay, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to try and go through all your guys' comments. Is there a perfect D&D system from a mechanics and math you have enjoyed?
Oh, Josh. This was a mistake, Josh. You're about to hear about the hero system.
Okay.
No. Well, but the
we had this conversation, Howard and I.
Well, actually, that question has an easy answer. No.
Yeah, right.
How different systems emphasize different features of. How will that? The game is modeling some real world phenomenon, right? The game is maybe modeling how things take place, how combat takes place in a simplified version of how combat takes place in the real world in its combat system, or maybe it's designed to replicate story flow in novels or movies. Note that those two story flows are slightly different.
Very much.
But there is no system that's going to model all those things well at the same time. And not only that, but they're added to that, because it's a role-playing game, is all the gaming or game-like elements to come in.
Right. So
the hero in your favorite novel isn't pausing to compute the probabilities of various actions.
Making the jump across the cliff, right? Or diving through the thing and then reaching back in to grab his hat. Fairly famous scene, yes?
But this is very different from what happens at tables, especially tables with people like me at it, because in the back of my head, I have a rough probability of the success of the maneuver, and I decide partially what my character is going to do on what would make for good story at this point, and partially based on what I think would actually work.
Yes, I remember those days. Yes, I remember. The probability used to say things like this: the probability of me doing this is not that great, but it's going to be great for the story, so I do it anyway. This is the kind of crap you get when you got a math person at your table. Yeah?
I love it. Okay, so we have a few. I'm going to keep going on the comments, and I'm really behind on the comments, guys, so I'm really sorry. But Valron says, this is about the challenge ratings again. I personally take challenge ratings calculations as my first check. Then I look through the monsters and think how they would fight my party and how my party might handle them. This takes a decent amount of experience to get good at.
I agree with that. Do you agree with that, Howard?
It takes more than a decent amount of experience, depending on the thing that makes even that analysis complicated are special abilities and spells.
Yeah, legendary actions too feature into that, all that stuff. By the way, Valron is Nick. He's sitting right out there. Hello, Nick. Wave to Nick.
Oh, Nick is
Valron, and behind him is Mike. Hello, Mike.
Oh, Mike's back there.
So we know who's listening.
I knew Mike was in the building, but I can't actually see him.
That's hilarious. Okay. We have someone asking, and I'm sorry, I can't see. It just says Facebook user on my chat. Can we have a regular Ask Howard column weekly?
You know what? Maybe we could. Would you be up for doing that, Howard? And
I haven't thought about how often I can afford to do it, so we'll play it by ear the first few times and figure that out.
That's absolutely fair. That's
okay.
absolutely fair.
This one's from Omnitoast, and I don't understand it, but maybe you guys will.
Austin, why are you giving us something that cameraman can't even understand?
I just know that I am a player, and I don't understand half of what is
the function of X when the character does Y? That's the real question,
okay.
right?
He says, optimal to still make it able to hit the highest AC and not overkill the lowest. Question mark. So it's a question, but
So this is the answer to what do you mean by optimal, and that is
fairest, right? It's sort of the fairest role, right? Or,
so in its purest form, that's just not possible. What if the ACs are far enough apart?
Hold on, Howard, 1 second. Mike, grab my phone and shut that off. That's because I'm supposed to call Alexander. Alexander! I'll call you soon, I promise. Continue. I apologize, my friend.
If the ACs are far enough apart, any monster that has a decent chance to hit the highest one will almost always hit the lowest one.
So it's the distance. So if they're close, it's not as big of a deal. But if you got somebody who's got running around there with, armor class, I don't know,
26
and then 26 or whatever stupid thing that was in the old days. Yes, Ravelin never took a hit.
Actually, that 26 was supposed to be an example from 5e because that's towards the high end of what's actually possible.
Yes, but that was Ravelin was like minus 26 or something crazy like that. We played second edition in those days. Yes, it was good. But yes, 26 versus a 7, right? Something like that, right?
So I guess ideally you'd like the probability of hitting any two characters to be not more than 20-30% apart, which means you want their ACs to not be more than 4 to 6 apart.
Right. So but that's going to be a little tough with spellcasters and that kind of stuff, right? And just robes versus these tanks that are running around with their, with their super armor.
I think you underestimate how high the AC of a wizard or a rogue can be.
It's true. No, with all the stuff they can get, little dex bonus.
Some of the examples of the extremely high ACs I have seen were on characters that could wear heavy armor and cast shield.
Right. Oh yeah, of course. Yes, that's right, because the shield spell is brutal, right? So you're wearing a pair of bracers, you're casting the shield spell, and then you add on top of it, you do a little mirror image action, right? And all of a sudden, it's pretty tough to hit you. Yes, remember that, mages.
Oh yeah, you point out that often the best way to make it hard to do something is to give the opponent disadvantage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you can do that,
because in the middle ranges of rolls, that's the equivalent of about a +5.
Did you hear that? You give the disadvantage to the opponent, and you're really helping yourself out quite a bit, right? Because of the middle rolls, right?
Yeah. So when the success is on an 11 or so, which is right in the middle, for those of you who think 10 is the middle, 11 is the middle.
11 is the middle, yes.
There are 10 numbers between 11 and 20, inclusive. And right in that zone, advantage is the equivalent of a +5.
Wow. Now you know what advantage does for you and what it does against you, right? So it's kind of both, right? That's interesting. Interesting.
I guess I could have said disadvantage is about a -5.
-5, right? Exactly. All right. So what else, Mandy?
Okay, I'm gonna do just a few more questions since we're like.
We can probably figure out some way to do a little math thing with Howard because he's good. This is a wonderful thing, and he's great. He's in the den, and he's a great member. In fact, I put up his portrait the other day because I wanted everybody to see it because it was done a long time ago. Yes, was a year, maybe something like that, in that range, maybe a little shorter. I don't remember.
When did the Kickstarter close?
Last November, last December. Something
so it was somewhere around there.
At that time. Yeah, marvelous. All right.
And I do also want to say, like, a lot of people are saying, math isn't my strong suit. You don't need to go this intense to play this game.
Not at all.
So, I will say, like...
So the probabilities that come up in these sorts of things, all you have to be able to do is multiplication. So, but it's sometimes multiplication of 2-digit numbers, so that are decimal fractions. So maybe you pull out a calculator.
This is why I have a calculator.
Yeah.
What am I saying?
There's a button.
I'm not in the modern in the modern era. You pull out a phone. Why did I say calculator?
Yeah, those don't exist anymore. We pull out the phone. All right. Well, go ahead, Camera Mandy. Let's do the next one.
I just do want to reemphasize though, like if you're new and you want to start GMing, this doesn't have to be overwhelming. Because I remember my best friend Dory, she was starting to GM and she was like overwhelmingly worried that she was going to TPK the party on the first one, and she did. But she corrected it in the storytelling. So, it was like she set up this crazy overpowered trap. But you're able to correct things on the fly if you do
feel like you've done something just really OP and really crazy and you've made a mistake as a game master, the best thing to do, right, is really to fix it, right? Because otherwise you frustrate your players, that has nothing to do with math and everything to do with, the joy of the game.
Yes. But like this stuff is very cool. Like if you ever want to just run a clean, like combat heavy campaign, like this sounds awesome. Okay. What are your thoughts on AC and spell slots math? I find that AC doesn't do much when most monsters add a +5 to hit.
Well,
the higher the AC, obviously, the harder it is for +5 to hit. But I think at lower levels, that +5 is hard, right?
Yeah, +5 is large, right? Yeah. But it is, if for some reason you have it, it is exactly canceled by a +5 to armor class.
So honestly, I guess the answer is the game master shouldn't be having this kind of thing go on where the to hits are just blowing away the armor classes of the party. What we were talking about earlier.
So as a rule of thumb, maybe you should think about what is the likelihood. Look at the chances of the party members to hit each other, right?
And that tells you.
And that tells you something. That tells you something like if the party can't hit itself, that tells you it's defensively biased, right? And if it can easily hit itself, it tells you that it's offensively biased. And if you have a party that can easily hit itself and you were to have it fight itself, it would kill it. There would be a lot of deaths, right? There would be a lot of deaths. And if you have a party that has struggles to hit the ACs that are present in that party, and you had a mirror fight with them, it would last a very long time. Right. So this tells you something when you build monsters, at least when the number of monsters is going to be close to the number of party members.
Wow, you got to build the fight because you can learn it from that. That's a very interesting. So remember that tip, right? How does the party fight itself? You can build monsters based on sort of that philosophy, based on how the party fights. And by the way, Camera Mandy, there's a fly flying.
I know. I was going to ask, what is the probability I'm going to kill that fly?
Listen. Howard was talking, but that thing is right there, and I was going to do the old snatch, right, like Mr. Miyagi, right?
I know. Sorry, guys, for the fly. The fly's driving us crazy. Okay, what is?
Should I tell people how the proper way to do that snatch? Flies jump backward when they take off. So you
did you know that? So you don't go behind the fly, not in front of the fly, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay, so what is the probability of getting hit with a dragon's breath weapon multiple times in a single battle?
How many times can the dragon breathe, right? I guess.
How many dragons are there?
Let's start with one dragon. So
it said a dragon's breath. So
one dragon.
So one dragon.
Cone.
So if the DM knows what they're doing, I'd say you can get hit. What is it? This has been such a long time. 3 times?
Let's just say the dragon.
It's easy for dragons to hit you. I have news for you in case you have not.
They're going to whack you big time. Yes.
Any sort of any sort of area effect, easily, as long as some strategy is used, easily hits in D&D.
Yeah.
So, or what was meant by hit, right? So the only issue is what your save is.
Yeah, what are you saving, right? Because you got to jump out of the way and get out to the deal of it. So and it really depends, right, on what your position of your character is, position of the others, right? And where's the dragon breathing and all that kind of stuff.
A well-designed dragon encounter, the chance that the breath weapon will hit you is 100%.
Yeah, pretty damn high.
Okay, this is the most important question. What is Howard's position on hats being important for wizards?
Howard, make sure you say hats. This is a major controversy, as you know.
This will determine if half the, there's really no great answer for this because half the people will love you or half the people will be like,
okay,
no.
So the ones that are haberdashers will not like me because what I'm about to say is...
Oh, I think we should cut off the stream right now. I think we should probably cut off the stream.
Are about to lose all you hatters out there.
I think it's time to end, guys.
Please continue, Mr. Thompson. Yeah.
While I think...
Professor Thompson, Dr. Thompson.
While I might like cool hats, I don't think they're necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Ha! Dr. Thompson has spoken. Is that it for us, Cameramandi?
I mean, God, there are so many more comments, guys. Okay, I think that we're probably going to, because we're 35 minutes over at this point.
We got to go. But we will, I'll talk to Howard about this. I think that people enjoyed this. And
yes.
maybe we can figure out how, ask Dr. Howard, what's going on with math, because I see them. They're scrolling through lots of them. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we have so many questions.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, math is part of the game, right? It's a big deal in the game.
Math is fun.
And math. Let's not get carried away. So, all right. So we're gonna go, Cameramandi. We are done. Is there anything else? We're finished.
This is it for today. We are figuring out next week because we have Colorado Springs Comic Con, so we will keep you updated.
And may all your mathematics be sticky. Ha ha. Say goodbye, Howard.
Goodbye, Howard.